Today, in episode 3, we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of planting. We're going to talk about different types of planting, different types of soil, whether we're going to transplant, whether we're going to plant directly seeds into the soil, or whether we're going to put clones or starts into the soil. So there are advantages and disadvantages of each. We'll talk about in some detail the positive and the negative of every possible planting procedure. So if you analyze starts, there are 2 or 3 real types of starts. There's a seedling, which is started with a seed, which again, if it's a 99.5% feminized seed, you have a 99.5% chance that that's a feminized plant. If you start with a clone, which can be defined as either a striking off of a mother plant, or in the case of tissue culture propagation, it would be an exact replica. And in that case, if you take a striking or a clone from a mother plant, which is known to be feminized, or if you take a tissue culture or a cell culture, which is known to be feminized, then you can be guaranteed that that plant, that start that you put in the ground will be a feminized start.
So just review the different methods of growing, of starting a plant out. We talked a little bit about seed and transplant. What are the, and those would be in the soil, just
Right.
directly in the soil. What are the other options available to a person? Let's say, for example, they had really poor soil, but they got a place and they wanted to have more control. What are the different options for them?
So there's a couple of places that I visited that plant 100% of their plants in fabric bags.
Now, is that indoor or outdoor?
That's outdoor. They are in southern Nevada, so they do use a shade cloth to kind of lighten the sun load on the plants. It gets hot there, but the advantages are the soil that we use in fabric bags is all an inert, man-made. It's a combination of cocoa coir and vermiculite and perlite, so we can control what we get to start with there. We start with something that's completely inert. We know that we're going to have to feed that plant 100% of everything it gets. So if when my soil test came back and they had been analyzed and the report came back that said this soil is completely unacceptable, it won't allow normal plant growth or successful plant growth, then my option would be, okay, I still own this farm, I still own the water. The water is well water and it's really good water. So I want to take advantage of all of this that I can. So my option then becomes, okay, let's buy a 12 or a 15 pound fabric bag, grow bag, or even a little more expensive, but even a little bit better is an air pot, and we grow our plants then. We still grow on top of the soil. We get more oxygen into the root system. We can control our water a little bit better. We can control our weed pressure a lot better, and we can actually maintain a more controlled growth because each plant then is in a controlled environment of what's inside a bag that we actually create the growing space for. We still have to do all of the things that we talked about. We still have to, with the possibility of maybe we don't need to remediate the soil because we've created an ideal soil, but we still need a whole product of, and maybe it has to be a little bit better because if we start with something that's completely inert, we have to feed that plant 100% of what it needs. There's no existing any nutrient that we get to count on. We don't get to tap into whatever phos was already in the soil. All we do is need to make it available. There's nothing there. So everything we do in that situation has to be, we're going to feed that plant 100% of what it needs. We're going to control the stress 100% of what it needs. And all of that happens inside a controlled growing environment, a growing bag. depending on the length of the season you have, you could either start with an individual plant in a seed and plant it directly in that soil. A safer bet is still to plant a start, maybe 6 or 8 inch start, or you might even want to start with for example, if you were in a high altitude, low number of days growing season, you might want to start with a teenage plant and transplant that plant into this outdoor growing